When the millionaire is sinking in his car, the female beggar comes and changes everything. The wind howled like a wounded beast as dark clouds rolled in, swirling ominously above the city. Gustavo, a millionaire with polished shoes and a tailored suit, sat in his brand new luxury sports car, believing he could conquer the world. But fate had other plans. He watched, wide-eyed, as torrential rain began to pelt down in sheets, turning the streets into rivers. The air was electric, filled with that eerie stillness that comes just before catastrophe strikes. In a split second, his high-speed escape turned into a desperate race against time. With a sickening lurch, a deluge surged through the open windows, swallowing the car whole. Panic tightened around his chest like a vice. His wealth, status, and all those gleaming accolades he'd amassed felt like lead weights dragging him deeper into the icy abyss. The world spun, and everything faded into darkness, just as despair washed. Was she mad? The roar of the storm was deafening, washing away words, leaving only the adrenaline pumping in his veins. She swam closer, her determination unmatched. The water clawed at them both like angry hands. With a swift motion, she shattered the window of his sinking car and pulled him to safety. Then, just like that, she vanished into the tumult, leaving him gasping on the shore. His heart racing, not just from the storm, but from a flood of emotions he couldn't name. Gratitude, admiration, something deeper. He couldn't shake the fierce connection they'd shared. So outlandish, so miraculous. But the world didn't stop for him to catch his breath. Friends and family rushed to his side, but their voices felt hollow, drowned out by the echo of Laura's courage. "Focus on the family business, Gustavo," his sister Denise insisted, her eyes darting nervously. But his heart was set on finding the girl who had shown him what true bravery looked like. Someone who saw beyond wealth. Each step towards understanding her story brought challenges. People questioned his intentions, and skepticism from those around him pushed him further into solitude. Finally, after much searching, he orchestrated a meeting. He imagined their reunion, the unbroken bond, and the profound discussions that would follow. But as he prepared, a chilling message arrived, hinting at Laura's family's dark secrets. What if the truth of her circumstances was tangled in shadows far darker than he had anticipated? The question hung heavy in the air, leaving him anxious and determined to uncover the real story. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave. His heart raced as he stared at the message on his phone, its chilling words sending shivers down his spine. What had he stumbled into? The need to find Laura consumed him, yet the shadows of her past felt like a suffocating mist pulling him deeper. Hours later, he stood in the small, dimly lit cafe where they had arranged to meet. The smell of coffee mixed with the dampness from the streets outside. He couldn't shake off the goosebumps. He glanced at the door, hoping to see her walk in. Anticipation twisted in his gut. Would she see him as a friend now? Or would the secrets of her past loom larger than his riches? Just as the clock struck 5, the door creaked open. A draft swept in, and in stepped Laura, soaked to the bone and shivering. But there was an energy in her eyes that burned through the chill. It was as if she had faced the storm head on and emerged unscathed. He felt his heart leap. "Laura!" he shouted, his voice a mixture of relief and excitement. She smiled briefly, but it quickly faded, replaced by a shadow of worry. "Gustavo, we shouldn't be here," she cautioned, glancing around as if fearing an unseen threat. Confusion washed over him. "Why not? I just wanted to talk, to understand." "That's what they said to my family." Her voice trembled, the weight of her words staggering. "It's never about understanding. It's about keeping secrets buried." He leaned in, urgency rippling through him. "What do you mean? Tell me." Suddenly, her eyes widened, darting toward the window. The sound of screeching tires pierced the air. A dark van swerved sharply out front. Time slowed as men in black suits jumped out, faces masked, their movements swift and purposeful. "Run!" she shouted, gripping his wrist with unexpected strength. He didn't pause. He followed her out the back door, adrenaline flooding his veins as they dashed through the narrow alley. His mind raced, heart pounding loudly in his ears as they burst out onto the main street. But the van was waiting, tires spinning, engine growling like a predator. Gustavo turned to Lara, panting. "What do they want with you?" "Everything." Her eyes locked onto his, filled with unspoken truths. "My family! We're not who you think. There are things I didn't tell you, things you need to know." Just then, a blaring horn drew their attention. A huge black truck skidded to a halt. The driver's face was a mask of determination. "Get in!" Lara hesitated, her breath hitching. "They'll never stop!" But the urgency of the moment pressed down on him. "We can't just stand here!" With no other choice, they jumped in as the door slammed shut. The driver, a rugged man with sharp eyes, punched the accelerator. "You two are in serious danger. We don't have much time." As they sped off, panic gripped him. "Danger? Why? What's happening?" Lara leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "My parents. They're involved in something dangerous. I thought I could escape it. But it's stronger than I am. You're in this now, and they won't let you go." The walls of his world began to crumble. Everything he had built his life upon, wealth, respect, security, felt flimsy next to the reality of her words. Suddenly, the truck swerved to dodge a pursuing car, tires screeching. Hope and fear intertwined in Gustavo's chest, each heartbeat pounding out a desperate rhythm of survival. "We have to know the truth," he urged, gripping her hand tightly. "There's no going back now." Lara's eyes glimmered with tears, the tension between them thick. "Then brace yourself for a truth that could destroy everything." Just then, a deafening explosion rocked the truck. a fiery blaze lighting up the street ahead. Panic surged through him. Everything he thought he understood was about to change forever. What if the girl who saved him was not just a victim, but a piece in a much darker game? The twist of fate had only begun to reveal its hand. The explosion ripped through the air like a jagged knife, flames swallowing everything in their path. He blinked through the haze, his thoughts racing. "Lara, are you okay?" The words tumbled from his lips, but the heat of the fire gnawed at the edges of his panic. "I'm fine," she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the roars of chaos. But he could see the fear etched on her face, her eyes wide, reflecting the firestorm outside. "We need to get out of here now!" He scrambled to the door, adrenaline surging, gripping the handle. But before he could pull it open, the driver swerved. The rugged man cursed under his breath, steering desperately away from the burning wreckage that had once been their escape route. The van skidded, tires screeching, nearly missing a lamppost. "Hold on!" he yelled, his focus laser sharp. Then, in a sudden twist of fate, the van collided with something hard. Everything blurred. There were shouts, crashing metal, and then silence. Darkness swept over him. When Gustavo came to, he was lying on the ground, the acrid smell of smoke filling his lungs. He blinked up to see the sky, littered with ash. Lara was crouched beside him, her hand clasped tightly over his. The truck, miraculously, hadn't exploded. The driver was motionless behind the wheel, eyes glassy and distant. "Gustavo, we have to go!" she urged, her voice breaking like glass. Each second felt like an eternity. He pushed himself up, the heaviness of limbs weighing him down. Panic clawed at him. "What about him?" he stammered, unable to look away from the driver. "Forget him. They'll be here any moment." Her grip tightened and her eyes were wild with unrestrained fear. But as they stumbled out onto the street, officers swarmed the area, sirens wailing. Gustavo's heart sank. Where was the safety they sought? The life he knew? And then he saw them. Men in black suits advancing, faces obscured. The same men they had seen before. The shadows that had haunted Lara. "They're here for you!" he shouted, turning to her for answers. "What's going on, Lara?" But just then, the most shocking revelation crashed over him like a tidal wave. An officer stepped forward, and in an unexpected twist, he pulled off his mask, revealing a familiar face. It was Denise, his sister. Her eyes, usually soft and supportive, were now cold and fierce. "Gustavo, you need to come with us," she demanded, voice steady and commanding. "This is bigger than you understand." Everything he believed twisted in an instant. All that he thought he was fighting against shattered. Lara's expression had turned pale, her mouth opening in shock. "You too? You're in on this?" she gasped, disbelief pouring from her words. Denise glanced at her, then back at Gustavo, the gravity of her gaze clawing at him. "It's not what you think. I tried to protect you both, but it's too late. We don't have time for this." Gustavo barely registered the fear in Lara's eyes or the betrayal swimming in his sister's. The warmth of loyalty faded, replaced by shivering doubt. "So it was a lie," he whispered, realization sinking in. "No, no." Lara shook her head, backing away, her voice trembling. "Gustavo, don't do this. You don't understand what's at stake here. But the words barely reached him as the world spun. The reality he had clung to was slipping through his fingers. Lara was fighting against something far greater than he could ever comprehend, and Denise had chosen a side. A cold chill wrapped around his heart as he realized the truth. Everything had been a game, a tangled web of lies where he had been the pawn. The stakes had just skyrocketed, the ground shifting beneath his feet. He looked back at Lara, and she was filled with anguish. "I thought you'd trust me," she cried, desperation bleeding through her voice. "Trust who?" he yelled, fear flooding his chest. "Do I trust you or her?" A siren blared behind them, the authorities closing in, and all he could feel was the weight of uncertainty. What would he choose now? Would he follow his sister, or stay with the girl who had once saved him? The questions hung heavy in the air, a storm brewing once again, this time within his own mind. The choice loomed, and with it, the terrifying realization that the truth was far from over. Gustavo felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him harder than ever. Everything felt like a blur, voices fading into the background as Denise stood there, eyes narrowed, waiting for his decision. Lara's expression twisted in disbelief, her hands trembling from a concoction of fear and anger. "Gustavo, please!" Lara cried, her voice cracking like thin glass. "You don't know what they're capable of!" "The truth is right in front of you," Denise snapped, frustration sparking in her eyes. "They're dangerous. You can't trust her." But amidst the chaos, a loud bang shattered their tense standoff. A sudden explosion erupted from the dark van, sending shards of glass flying. The air filled with a deafening roar as flames erupted skyward, casting an eerie glow on the street. People scattered, screams piercing through the chaos. Instinct kicked in. They all ducked, eyes widening in horror. "Run!" Gustavo shouted, grabbing Lara's hand. Denise fell back, shock freezing her in place. Lara's grip tightened around his as they sprinted down the street, hearts pounding. The sirens wailed behind them, but all that mattered was escape. Desperation clawed at Gustavo's chest. He stole a look back, seeing Denise step slowly toward the wreckage, her face pale and lost. "Gustavo!" she shouted, her voice small against the roar of flames. "You have to believe me! It's—" But before she could finish, another explosion tore through the air, and suddenly Denise was thrown back, knocked off her feet. Time froze as he watched in disbelief. The world around him blurred, fear twisted in his gut. "Denise!" he yelled, heart racing. He willed his legs to move, frantic thoughts racing. She lay sprawled on the ground, smoke curling around her like a shroud. "Get up!" Panic surged as he turned back to Lara, who was shaking her head, eyes wide, terror-stricken. "Gustavo, we can't go back!" she urged, voice trembling. The realization hit him like a punch. She wasn't just scared of the explosion. There was something more. "I can't leave her!" he shouted, his instincts warring within him. In that moment, a figure emerged from the smoke, moving deliberately through the chaos. It was a tall man, dressed in black, his face obscured. He walked as if the chaos around him didn't touch him at all. A predator among prey. Everything slowed. Gustavo's heart thundered against his chest. "Who are you?" he called out, fear morphing into something raw. The man didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small device, pressing a button. A series of green lights blinked ominously. Gustavo's stomach dropped. "Gustavo, we need to move!" Lara yelled, dragging at his arm, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. The device emitted a high-pitched whine, gathering everyone's attention. Then it detonated, not in an explosion, but with a blinding flash. Gustavo shielded his eyes, heat washing over him. Then came the sound, a bone-rattling blast that vibrated through the air. Everything went white. When he blinked back to reality, the world was different. There were bodies on the ground, a collective gasp hanging in the air. And there, in the midst, he saw her, Denise. But she was different. She was standing untouched, staring at him with cold eyes. The man in black stood beside her, and for the first time, he saw the smile curl on her lips. "Surprise!" she said, and the world fell apart around them. An understanding, a shocking betrayal hit like a tidal wave. She wasn't the innocent protector, he thought. She was the one who pulled the strings. Her loyalty never to him, but to a game he didn't know he was part of. Gustavo's world shattered. "Denise, why?" "Because, brother," she said, voice smooth like ice. "There's so much you don't understand." Reality twisted, every moment they'd shared falling into place like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. His heart raced, fear and betrayal mixing into a storm inside him. Lara's voice broke through the haze, quivering with disbelief. You planned this?" Denise stepped forward, confidence emanating from her. "This was never just about family. You were always going to be part of something bigger." Gustavo's mind raced. Everything blurred. Love, loyalty, the very foundation of his life built on lies. The ground felt like it was shifting beneath his feet. How could this be true? The images of the last few weeks spun in his mind. Love mixed with treachery, a veil pulled back to reveal the monster beneath. Then, just before the chaos closed in again, he heard the words that changed everything. "You don't know the truth about our family," Denise said, her voice dripping with something he couldn't identify. Was it pride? Glee? But you will. Just not yet. As the sirens wailed and the chaos escalated, he stood rooted, heart pounding. In the distance, more dark figures emerged, marking the beginning of an even darker revelation. And he realized, with visceral terror, that the stakes were far greater than he ever imagined. The lines between enemies and allies had blurred. Would he choose to fight for the truth? Or would he be consumed by a legacy he never wanted? The choice hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, leaving him gasping for answers he wasn't sure he wanted. The world felt like it was spinning out of control. The echo of the explosion still rang in Gustavo's ears, drowning out Denise's cold, triumphant smile. The reality of the situation consumed him as he looked from her to Lara. Each heartbeat a painful reminder of how quickly everything had shifted. "Gustavo, please!" Lara was pleading again, her voice trembling with desperation. "You can't believe her! She's lying!" But the chaos around them was rising, sirens blaring, and Gustavo felt trapped. He looked back at Denise. Every ounce of love he once had for her, battling with the betrayal, slicing through him. "What have you done?" Denise took a step closer, voice low but firm. You don't get it, do you? This is bigger than our family. They want you for a reason. You must come with us so you can finally learn the truth. Before he could respond, the ground shook again. Dust rained down from nearby buildings. Was it from the explosion? The sky was darkening with smoke, and the air was thick with confusion and fear. A hushed gasp rippled through the crowd as more figures stepped out from the shadows. Not just the dark-suited men, but also clad in military gear. They might have been police or something more ominous. Time's running out, one shouted, voice commanding as he pointed towards them. Get the girl! Instinct kicked in. Run! He yelled to Lara. But she was frozen, eyes darting between him and the approaching figures, her breath quickening. They'll separate us! She grabbed his arm, panic bursting. But he felt countless eyes on him, the weight of expectations stifling. Why should I trust you? He turned to Denise, every word laced with doubt. You're the one who's been playing me this entire time! For a moment, silence engulfed them. The shouting blended into a background hum. Chaos could wait, because it's not what you think. I'm not the enemy here. Lara's part of something. You need to understand that. Suddenly, with a crackling sound, the larger figure in military gear stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Gustavo. We don't have time for this, he growled, voice dripping with impatience. Get in the vehicle. Gustavo's heart raced as they backed away. We were not going anywhere, he shouted, anxiety peaking in his throat. But in that moment, something unexpected happened. A loud blaring alarm rang out from the alley, and chaos erupted as more black vans screeched into the narrow street. He felt the ground shake underfoot, his pulse hammering in rhythm with the terror approaching. It's her! One of the soldiers shouted, pointing toward Lara. She's the one! A chill coursed through Gustavo. What does that mean? Who is she? Just as his mind raced with confusion, a voice sliced through the air like a knife. Stop! Everyone, freeze! All heads turned to see a woman stepping through the fray, wearing a badge that glinted cruelly in the light. Her steely, familiar features sharpened under the chaos. This is over, Lara. Gustavo felt his blood run cold as recognition hit him. It was his mother, the very woman he thought lost to his memories long ago. She stood there, untouched and powerful, confronting the soldiers. The cameras flashing around them captured the moment of revelation. Mother! He breathed, disbelief flooding his senses. You, how? But before he could process her presence, Lara's eyes widened in realization. You never told him, she spat, venom in her voice. You let him live in the dark. Tension thickened like fog. Everything he thought he understood hung in the balance. The world turned upside down as the unfolding chaos threatened to swallow them whole. Lives intertwining in ways he never imagined. Stay back, Gustavo! His mother barked, pointing toward Lara. We trusted her once, and look where it got us. She's not who you think she is. But in the silence that followed, the truth felt like a dagger poised above his heart. Everything he believed was suddenly unraveling, and the weight of his mother's deception hung like a noose around his neck. The line between family and enemy blurred, tipping him into a darkness filled with betrayal, secrets, and an unshakable need for answers. "Gustavo, please," Laura's voice was desperate, pleading. "It's not what you think. We need to get out of here, now." The question hung heavy in the air. Who could he trust when everything felt like a lie? As the sirens wailed even louder, the world began to spin again. And in that moment, he realized he was at the center of a storm far bigger than he could ever have imagined. What lay ahead loomed like shadows, and for the first time, he felt as if he were eclipsed by his own fears. The confrontation was just beginning, and every answer he sought might bring more questions, unraveling the very fabric of his life. The stakes had never been higher. And the truth was a deeper abyss than he'd ever faced. The world felt like it was spinning out of control. The echo of the explosion still rang in Gustavo's ears, drowning out Denise's cold, triumphant smile. The reality of the situation consumed him as he looked from her to Laura, each heartbeat a painful reminder of how quickly everything had shifted. "Gustavo, please!" Lara was pleading again, her voice trembling with desperation. "You can't believe her. She's lying." But the chaos around them was rising, sirens blaring. He looked back at Denise, every ounce of love he once had for her, battling with the betrayal slicing through him. "What have you done?" Denise took a step closer, voice low but firm. "You don't get it, do you? This is bigger than our family. They want you for a reason. You must come with us so you can finally learn the truth." Before he could respond, the ground shook again. Dust rained down from nearby buildings. Was it from the explosion? The sky was darkening with smoke, and the air was thick with confusion and fear. A hushed gasp rippled through the crowd as more figures stepped out. From the shadows, not just the dark-suited men, but also clad in military gear. They might have been police or something more ominous. "Time's running out," one shouted, voice commanding as he pointed toward them. "Get the girl!" Instinct kicked in. "Run!" he yelled to Laura. But she was frozen, eyes darting between him and the approaching figures, her breath quickening. "They'll separate us!" She grabbed his arm, panic bursting. But he felt countless eyes on him, the weight of expectations stifling. "Why should I trust you?" He turned to Denise, every word laced with doubt. "You're the one who's been playing me this entire time." For a moment, silence engulfed them. The shouting blended into a background hum. Chaos could wait. "Because it's not what you think." "I'm not the enemy here. Lara's part of something. You need to understand that." Suddenly, with a crackling sound, the larger figure in military gear stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Gustavo. "We don't have time for this," he growled, voice dripping with impatience. "Get in the vehicle." Gustavo's heart raced as they backed away. "We're not going anywhere," he shouted, anxiety peaking in his throat. But in that moment, something unexpected happened. A loud, grating roar filled the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. The ground beneath them cracked open, sending vibrations jolting through everyone. Gasps erupted as the pavement buckled, revealing a dark, swirling pit that seemed to pull everything into its depths. "Run!" someone screamed, panic surging like a tidal wave. But it was too late. The ground caved in, bodies stumbled, and chaos reigned. Gustavo grabbed Lara, pulling her close, but the air was thick with screams. Denise's expression shifted from confidence to terror, and he barely registered her shout, "Get back!" Before he could process, the monstrous pit erupted, shooting up flames and debris, casting an orange glow across horrified faces. In the middle of it all, catapulted from the depths, was a silhouette, a figure rising from the chaos, cloaked in shadow. Gustavo squinted, heart racing. It was a person, tall and formidable, emerging from the fire like an avenging spirit. The crowd fell silent, breath held in disbelief. Then, as if time stopped, the figure stepped forward into the light. It was a woman, her features sharp, fierce, and strikingly familiar. The moment she spoke was electric. The words sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Gustavo, I've been waiting for you." His heart dropped, mind reeling. "What?" His voice barely a whisper, disbelief clawing at his every word. "Who are you?" "Your mother," she said, each syllable thick with unspoken truths. "I am your real mother." Shock rippled through him, the ground disappearing beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew shattered like glass. The woman he believed was lost, the one he grieved, had been alive, lost in a web far darker than he ever imagined. And in that instant, he realized the stakes were much higher than he thought. Denise's betrayal, Lara's secrets, everything had been tied into a single thread that led back to this woman. "Why?" he gasped, breathless with panic. His heart raced. "Why didn't you find me?" The mysterious figure stepped closer, intensity radiating from her. "Because I wanted to keep you safe, Gustavo. But the truth is, you're in danger. They want you back." Lara looked between them, confusion etched on her face. "What does that mean?" Before the woman could answer, the ground quaked again. More military figures emerged from the shadows, eyes narrowed, weapons drawn. "This is far from over," she warned, voice dropping to a whisper as the chaos erupted around them. And Gustavo, lost in a whirlwind of deception, stood at the precipice of secrets far deeper than he'd ever imagined. The truth gnawed at him, leaving him breathless. He had more questions than ever. Who could he trust in this hellscape? And what future awaited him now, caught between two worlds? As the sirens blared anew, threatening to consume him whole, an unsettling feeling settled deep in his bones. A storm was coming, and he was at its eye. The world felt like it was spinning out of control. The echo of the explosion still rang in Gustavo's ears, drowning out Denise's cold, triumphant smile. The reality of the situation consumed him as he looked from her to Lara. Each heartbeat, a painful reminder of how quickly everything had shifted. "Gustavo, please," Lara was pleading again, her voice trembling with desperation. "You can't believe her. She's lying." But the chaos around them was rising, sirens blaring, and Gustavo felt trapped. He looked back at Denise, every ounce of love he once had for her battling with the betrayal slicing through him. "What have you done?" Denise took a step closer, voice low but firm. "You don't get it, do you? This is bigger than our family. They want you for a reason. You must come with us so you can finally learn the truth." Before he could respond, the ground shook again. Dust rained down from nearby buildings. Was it from the explosion? The sky was darkening with smoke, and the air was thick with confusion and fear. A hushed gasp rippled through the crowd as more figures stepped out from the shadows. Not just the dark-suited men, but also clad in military gear. They might have been police or something more ominous. "Time's running out," one shouted, voice commanding as he pointed toward them. "Get the girl!" Instinct kicked in. "Run!" he yelled to Lara, but she was frozen, eyes darting between him and the approaching figures, her breath quickening. "They'll separate us." She grabbed his arm, panic bursting, but he felt countless eyes on him, the weight of expectations stifling. "Why should I trust you?" He turned to Denise, every word laced with doubt. "You're the one who's been playing me this entire time." For a moment, silence engulfed them. The shouting blended into a background hum. Chaos could wait. "Because it's not what you think. I'm not the enemy here. Lara's part of something. You need to understand that." But before he could respond, the larger figure in military gear took a step forward, his eyes locked onto Gustavo. "We don't have time for this," he growled, voice dripping with impatience. "Get in the vehicle." Gustavo's heart raced as they backed away. "We're not going anywhere," he shouted, anxiety peaking in his throat. In that moment, something unexpected happened. A loud, grating roar filled the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. The ground beneath them cracked open, sending vibrations jolting through everyone. Gasps erupted as the pavement buckled, revealing a dark, swirling pit that seemed to pull everything into its depths. "Run!" someone screamed, panic surging like a tidal wave. But it was too late. The ground caved in, bodies stumbled, and chaos reigned. Gustavo grabbed Lara, pulling her close, but the air was thick with screams. Denise's expression shifted from confidence to terror, and he barely registered her shout, "Get back!" Before he could process, the monstrous pit erupted, shooting up flames and debris, casting an orange glow across horrified faces. In the middle of it all, catapulted from the depths, was a silhouette, a figure rising from the chaos, cloaked in shadow. Gustavo squinted, heart racing. It was a person, tall and formidable, emerging from the fire like an avenging spirit. The crowd fell silent, breath held in disbelief. Then, as if time stopped, the figure stepped forward into the light. It was a woman, her features sharp, fierce, and strikingly familiar. The moment she spoke was electric. The words sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Gustavo, I've been waiting for you." His heart dropped, mind reeling. "What?" His voice barely a whisper, disbelief clawing at his every word. "Who are you?" "Your mother," she said, each syllable thick with unspoken truths. "I am your real mother." Shock rippled through him, the ground disappearing beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew shattered like glass. The woman he believed was lost, the one he grieved, had been alive, lost in a web far darker than he ever imagined. And in that instant, he realized the stakes were much higher than he thought. Denise's betrayal, Lara's secrets, everything had been tied into a single thread that led back to this woman. "Why?" he gasped, breathless with panic. His heart raced. "Why didn't you find me?" The mysterious figure stepped closer, intensity radiating from her. "Because I wanted to keep you safe, Gustavo. But the truth is, you're in danger. They want you back." Lara looked between them, confusion etched on her face. "What does that mean?" Before the woman could answer, The ground quaked again. More military figures emerged from the shadows, eyes narrowed, weapons drawn. "This is far from over," she warned, voice dropping to a whisper as the chaos erupted around them. Gustavo felt the tightness in his chest. In a sickening twist, the leading military figure pulled off his mask. It was his father. Tall, familiar face, but twisted with anger. "Enough of this!" he shouted, eyes wild. "You shouldn't have come back. You were never meant to find out!" Denise's face twisted in horror. "Dad, what?" And just like that, everything shifted once more. The woman who claimed to be his mother was not, and the betrayal ran deeper than he could have imagined. The foundations of his world crumbled. He stood there breathless and lost. He was caught in a storm where every ally became an enemy. "Gustavo, we need to go! Now!" Lara yelled, pulling at him again. But he felt paralyzed, staring at the two people who should have been his family. Realization tearing him apart. What did he really know? His mind raced as they closed in. Tension thick and sizzling, filling the air with a tension so palpable it could explode at any moment. And suddenly, truth and deception became indistinguishable as the ground beneath them trembled. More than just earth-shifting, the fabric of their lives was about to unravel, and he had no idea how deep the lies ran. "Gustavo!" Lara's voice called, frantic, pulling him back from the edge of despair. But as the chaos roared around them, one thought pounded in his mind. Who could he trust when everyone had their secrets? The line blurred. As danger approached, he felt the weight of choices pressing down like a tidal wave. And the answer eluded him like a phantom. With that understanding, fear gripped him deeper than ever. Something shattered inside, and he knew this wasn't merely about survival anymore. It was about truth, family, and a legacy that threatened to consume them all. The storm was just beginning. The air was thick with tension. Gustavo's heart pounded as he peered between the two women who claimed to be his family. His mother, standing defiantly against a backdrop of chaos, sent shockwaves through him. His father's furious gaze was pinned on the mysterious figure, deadly silent as he processed the revelation. "Gustavo, we need to go! Now!" Lara shouted again, pulling him closer, urgency etched onto her face. But it was like he was stuck in quicksand. The realization of everything swirling around him, dragging him deeper into confusion. "Tell me the truth, Mom!" he shouted, feeling the heat build within him. "Why did you leave me? What's really going on?" But before she could respond, a massive explosion echoed in the distance. The ground shook beneath them, sending vibrations that rattled into his bones. Smoke billowed up, blocking the sun, darkness engulfing the street as panic erupted all around. "Everyone get back!" a voice shouted. "Too late!" The crowd began to scatter, screams erupting. But Gustavo stood still, staring at his father's icy expression. And then it happened. The ground cracked open again. Not just a fissure, but a gaping maw that swallowed debris and earth alike. From that chasm, a piercing light shot up, blinding and sudden. In the chaos, a figure emerged from the light, rising with an unnerving grace. Gustavo squinted against the brightness, shock freezing him in place. As the light faded, he recognized the figure. It was his brother, a brother he never knew he had. He stood there, clad in white, eyes flashing with a knowing intensity that sent chills down Gustavo's spine. "Gustavo, I've come to save you!" he called out, his voice booming like thunder. "What?" he gasped, confusion swirling in his mind like a tempest. The air around him felt electric. This was a twist he'd never seen coming. His mother's eyes widened in horror as she took a step back. "No! How could you be here?" Lara looked between them, disbelief etched on her face. Is this some kind of joke? She didn't dare to move, her grip loosening on Gustavo's arm, lost in the surreal moment. The figure, his brother, stepped closer, rich curls framing a determined face. "It's true, but it's deeper than you think. Mom didn't just leave you, she was forced. There are things she hid, things that could endanger us all." As those words hovered in the air, there was a collective gasp. The crowd around them momentarily ceased its chaos, eyes glued to the spectacle unraveling. Endanger us? Us? Gustavo's heart raced. Questions flooded his mind. What did it all mean? His brother's sudden appearance tore apart whatever semblance of a normal life he thought he had left. "Gustavo, we don't have time," his brother shouted, urgency creeping into his tone. "Get out of here! They're coming!" "Who's coming?" he yelled back, frustration tasting bitter on his tongue. His whole world felt like it was in free fall. But before his brother could answer, two figures broke through the smoke, shrouded in dark suits, eyes filled with cold ambition. They were men he recognized from before, the ones who'd chased Lara. "Grab them!" one shouted, barely audible over the cacophony. That single command ignited chaos. The ground trembled again, and the air shifted ominously, filled with danger. "Lara, we have to run!" Gustavo grasped her hand, tugging her backwards. But confusion held her still. As they turned, the scene erupted into a frenzy of motion. His brother raced forward, shouting back to them, "Don't trust anyone, not even me!" A sickening weight filled his chest. What? But there was no time for further explanations as more explosions rocked the street, each boom stealing breaths. Gripping Lara's hand tighter, he yanked her away from the chaos. The weight of the truth felt heavier than the darkness rolling in. His world was ripping apart. The urgency swelled like a tidal wave, and as they ran, an unsettling thought struck him. Everything he believed in, everything he held dear, now stood on a razor's edge. Trust? Betrayal? The lines were blurred. From behind, he caught his brother's gaze, panic and fear radiating like a beacon. "Don't look back, just go!" And with that, the ground beneath them trembled yet again, an ominous reminder that the storm was far from over. Gustavo felt the tension around him thicken, every nerve on edge, ready to snap. The world was chaos, and the hidden truths were pulling him deeper into darkness. He fought to keep pace with Lara, their hands tightly clasped together, as sirens wailed in the distance. The crowd erupted in wild confusion, people scrambling in every direction, fueled by primal instincts of survival. Breathlessly, they dashed away from the swirling chaos, but Gustavo's mind was racing faster than his feet. He thought of his brother, The sudden appearance, the shock of discovering family he never knew existed. But in that whirlwind of emotions, doubt creeped in. What if his brother was a distraction? What if all along this was just another layer of the lies? Gustavo! Lara's voice cracked through his thoughts. We need to keep moving. He nodded but glanced back. The sight was horrifying. More military figures emerged, fanning out like a predator closing in on prey. They were hunting them, the intensity in their eyes like daggers, sharp and penetrating. Over here! Lara pointed to an alleyway, shadows beckoning. Without hesitating, they turned into the narrow space, walls closing in. But it somehow offered a sense of refuge. They raced through, heartbeats echoing against the brick, every sound amplified in the tight confines. Do you think we lost them? He panted, catching his breath despite the rising panic. I don't know, she snapped, eyes darting around, searching for a way out. They won't stop until they find us. A sudden thought struck him, sharp and painful. Lara, why did you help me? What are you really hiding? Her face paled, eyes wide. I thought you were in danger. They want you for something. I don't understand it all. Before he could respond, a heavy crash shattered the moment. The wall near them splintered as a figure burst through the debris. His father, eyes blazing with rage. The air thickened with the scent of smoke and danger. Gustavo! He shouted, voice raw. Why are you still here? You need to come with me, now. Lara took a step back, fear gripping her. What is wrong with you? None of this makes sense. But his father was fueled by something darker. You don't understand. There's more going on. They're not what they seem. Trust me. His voice wavered, a plea wrapped in authority. Gustavo's heart raced as questions swirled in his mind. But the real shock came when another figure emerged behind his father. A woman, cloaked in shadows, her face partially hidden. A recognition sliced through the confusion like a knife. Mom, he breathed, disbelief flooding his senses. The woman stepped forward, revealing a face he thought he'd never see again. His mother, yes, but different. There was a hardness to her demeanor, a twist of fate he couldn't comprehend. Gustavo, I'm here to explain, but it's not safe. And in that moment, everything shifted. The ground shook again, a pulse of energy that vibrated in his bones. The words tumbled, a cascade of truths splintering under the weight of chaos. You're not just my mom. I don't understand. She pressed her fingers over her lips, silencing him. Not now. They're coming for you. But something changed in the air. A silent alarm that clamored in his heart. A heavy dread settled as shadows flickered in the alley. At first, he thought it was fear playing tricks, until he saw the figures merge from the darkness. They were family, but not his family. Gustavo. The voice was familiar, chillingly calm, and it was Denise, stepping forward, flanked by figures clad in suits. Welcome to the family reunion. His stomach dropped, confusion gripping him like a vice. What do you mean? And then the shocking truth sunk in. The people around him were just enemies. They were connected in a way that transcended loyalty, intertwined in deceit. The figures closed in, and he heard the whispers, words threading together, revealing a lineage steeped in secrets and betrayal. Your mother? Your father, they're not who you think they are, Denise said, the shadows enveloping her, turning her into something monstrous. And neither are you. The weight of those words dragged him down, suffocating. Time froze as realization washed over him, horror and confusion blurring into one. A betrayal deeper than blood hung in the air, reshaping everything he thought he knew, pulling him into a chasm of darkness he could not escape. What did it mean to belong when trust evaporated like steam in the air? As the trap tightened around him, Gustavo felt himself spiraling. There were more secrets yet unseen, and the twisted web was ready to unravel, threatening to pull them all down. He could barely process what was happening. The weight of his family's secrets threatened to crush him. Enough, his brother shouted, voice commanding. We don't have time for this. The ground shook again, a reminder that danger was closing in. Gustavo, trust me, his brother continued, eyes fierce. We have to escape, now, together. Why should I? He shot back, fear bubbling. Who do you really think I can trust here? The shadows around them shifted, revealing more figures emerging from the smoke. Each person was a threat, their eyes fixed on him. And his father growled, determined. You need to choose. Come with us or you'll regret it. Laura grabbed his arm, panic bursting in her eyes. Please, let's go. This isn't right. But the truth echoed in his mind. A family built on lies, deceit wrapping around them like a vice. The world felt like it was tearing apart. Gustavo, you don't have to do this, Laura cried, her voice strained, pulling him closer. The flickering flames danced to the sound of chaos. People scrambling everywhere, fear hanging thick. He could feel the heat on his skin. He tore his gaze from Laura back to his mom. You left me! Why did you let me believe you were dead? Tears glistened in her eyes, and for a second, he saw the mother he had always wanted. I did it to protect you. They would have destroyed you if they'd known. No more lies. I want the truth, he shouted, his heart racing. As the soldiers advanced, chaos erupted around them, shouts and cries blending together like a cacophony of despair. Adrenaline coursed through his veins. They were closing in. Run! His brother yelled suddenly, snapping him back to reality. Where? Laura shouted, fingers tightening around his wrist. Follow me! Without thinking, they bolted down the alley, the walls seeming to close in on them. Gustavo's breath came in ragged gasps. Every footfall echoed in a symphony of fear. But behind them, the figures pursued them like shadows chasing the light. They rounded a corner into a narrow street, and finally, they reached a dead end. The brick wall loomed, barricading their way. Stop right there! A voice boomed from behind. Echoing off the walls, Gustavo's heart raced. He was trapped. He could feel the heat from the flames behind him, threatening to swallow them whole. His brother stepped forward, determination etched across his face. I'll hold them off. You both need to escape. What? No. Go, now. The command was fierce, a roar that jolted him into action. Gustavo grabbed Lara's hand. Without another word, they climbed over the bricks, desperate. Each moment felt like an eternity. Fear clawed at their hearts. As they reached the top, a sound cut through the air. A deafening crash behind them. They looked back just in time to see his brother disappear into the chaos. Swallowed by the shadows, despair gripped him. But there was no time to grieve. Gustavo, we have to move! Laura tugged him forward once more, breaking him from the daze. They sprinted forward into the night, breathless, fear gripping their hearts. But a flicker of hope ignited. Together, they had a chance. They searched for a way out, slipping into shadows of their own, echoing the chaos they left behind. As the city lights flickered in the distance and sirens howled, they raced toward uncertainty, but with a bond forged in survival. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. "Whatever happens, we won't give up," Lara whispered fiercely. A faint light of determination ignited within him as they dashed into the unknown, their figures swallowed by the night. You must subscribe now to catch every twist in this unraveling story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us keep bringing you amazing content. Don't wait one more second to flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends.